Well, welcome, folks. We have a couple people still joining in here. Let me add these people to the list here. So thanks everyone for joining us again today at our second our second AI local government network. Excited to have you all join here. I'm going to throw up a couple quick slides. It's just kind of a reminder of what this network is all about and what we look to accomplish in this network. So let me do that real quick here. I'm going to share my screen as people still kind of join in here. Let me do this here. Bear with me 1 second. Share the screen here. All right. So again, just kind of a reminder of what our network goals are. And the first goal we want to have is to foster collaboration. This is what this network is all about. It's about collaborating. It's about sharing knowledge and about spurring innovation here with their members. So that's looking forward to doing that again today in this meeting. Again, if you want to share your insights and want to participate in this webinar and have some time dedicated to share what you're doing with AI in your local government context, here is the QR code for the sign up sheet. Grab a link to this. Again, I will send this out as part of the meeting recap like we did last time. So you will have an electronic copy of this via a link as well too. One more thing too. I had some issues with the sponsorship form. I apologize for those technical difficulties. Here is a updated link to the sponsorship form if you are a company interested in sponsoring this network and talking through some of your offerings and what your company does within the AI landscape. So also, for a reminder, don't want you to miss a webinar. So if you are unable to join for whatever reason, I know we get really busy within local government, right? So if you're busy and you can't get to a webinar and want to watch it afterwards, please feel free to grab this QR code to the Civic Innovation YouTube page where it's being live streamed right now as well. And you'll be able to go back and see that recording to that too. Also wanted to note this as well. I know we have some folks who maybe not be live with us right now, but maybe listen to this later on the recording. Have some folks from across the pond. If you are interested in participating in this webinar, but for whatever reason, the scheduling, the time frame does not work for you, please reach out to me and we can set something up, maybe to record a demonstration of what you're doing or something like that. And then we can share that recording with the members of this network as well. So one more slide here. Again, here's the webinar schedule in case you were looking for that. Here's the quick webinar schedule that looks like for the next couple meetings here. Generally speaking, the first Monday of the month, unless that Monday falls on a holiday or observed holiday, in which case we'll go for the next meeting after that. So without further ado, what I'd like to do here is I want to run a couple of quick polls, just kind of get some engagement going and talk through kind of where we're at within local government and where we're at here. So I'm going to do a quick poll here. I'm going to launch this one. Please take some time to answer this one, just to kind of get a feel for who's here within local government, kind of what sectors we have represented here. So it looks like we're getting a lot of city government and county government, some good representation from private sector folks and from maybe some other folks as well too. So a couple more seconds here and we'll close this poll here. So interesting in terms of kind of the background of where our fellow attendees are coming from here. The other one I want to do too, I'll share these results with you guys here too. That way you can see what that looks like within our local government's AI network here. The other one I wanted to do as well is just to kind of feel for what we're thinking about within AI and local government and kind of the some of the challenges we might have. So the second question here I want to ask you guys is, what are some of the challenges to AI? So in your mindset, kind of pick what you think is the greatest challenge to AI or to adopting AI in local governments. So I'm curious about these this thing as well too. Again, as the information comes in, it looks like there's a kind of a mixture between training and understanding of AI as well as policy. Not having a clear policy in AI, it seems to be one of the top challenges to adopting AI in local governments. Again, a couple more seconds here to let this poll, a couple more people respond to polls they see fit here. A couple more. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to end the poll there. And again, I'm going to share these results with you guys so you can see what how people are responding to that. Again, number 1, lack of training and understanding. And number 2 is no clear policy. Also interesting that 16% of us are saying, you know what, there's no challenge. We're using it already. So way to go, folks, and being proactive and using that here too, and using AI in local government. One final one. This one might be a little more complicated here. So let's go back here and try to do this one here. Bear with me 1 second. Right. Whatever reason it's not letting me launch this last one, we'll do that next time, talking about some of the ways that we think AI maybe is best positioned for application within local government. So and part of the preparation for this one, I've talked to some folks to kind of share what they're using within local government in terms of how they're applying AI. Again, the whole idea of this network is to kind of share what you guys are doing. And so I wanted to see if I can, if Mark Goodman is on, and if I can invite him to speak to some of the things he's doing within AI and local government. So there we are, Mark. If you don't mind, introduce yourself to the folks here and kind of share what you're doing with local government here. Love to hear how you're using AI.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks for having me today. Thanks for allowing me a few minutes to talk to everybody in the work group. My name is Mark Goodman. I'm a police chief of a medium-sized city here in the state of Arizona. And since being introduced to AI, I've been using it in a variety of different ways, both mainly on the operational side of the house. I started out by using it to help me craft some job descriptions for some new positions that we came up with in our police department. Super duper helpful with that. And I've been using it also as a decision-making tool to try to identify second and third level challenges to things that I'm writing in terms of policy for my police department. So as an example, I just recently revised our K-9 policy. And in conjunction with doing that, I asked AI I posed a bunch of different scenarios to the AI, and then I ran my policy against the AI to try to see if I could find weaknesses or strengths within the policy, and then to take it a step further and to dig a little deeper and have it actually suggest to me if I'm missing any best practices or if I'm doing things, if I'm missing anything in authoring these policies. So it's been super helpful in terms of that. Also, I'm starting to delve into using it as a decision-making tool for budgeting. My police department is rapidly growing, and so it's incumbent upon me to be responsible with the taxpayers' money, to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. And one of my big challenges is sort of right-sizing my department. I want to make sure that I have a department that's ready and able to respond to anything that our community throws at it. And I want to be able to respond to crime trends and do some predictive stuff as well, some predictive policing as well. Excuse me. And so I've been using it to help me crunch numbers and to do comparisons and to make sure that I'm not missing anything along the way in the process. So, and I'll oftentimes take information that I get at staff meetings, our senior leadership meeting, our executive team meetings, and I'll use some of the things that are talked about in there to help me develop some strategies for asking for positions or asking for things within my budget. I see Andrew has his hand up.
Yeah, Mark, I was just going to say thanks for all of those different examples you just gave, and then offer to Micah in the future if you want another example of how I'm using it. I'm happy to share whenever that time comes.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Andrew. I think that we'll probably do a great deal of learning from one another as things go on. I mean, right, I've primarily been using ChatGPT, but recently I've been branching off into some other large language model AI tools, such as I've been using Julius quite a bit lately, and I noticed that it works really well with graphics. It helped me put together a PowerPoint super quickly. And I wasn't up against a time crunch or anything like that, but I do.
Nope, you're good.
Okay.
Good.
I had plenty of time to put the PowerPoint together, but I just wanted to see what it would give me. And so I gave it, I just talk very conversationally with the AI tools that I use. And I think a lot of that, I think of a lot of success that you're going to have with AI, if you're not already using it, is really setting the stage for it. It's giving it the scenario in the best possible terms that you can. And the more information that you give the large language model or the AI to work with, you'll have a way, way, way better result. I remember just starting out, just giving it a couple sentences to work with. And now sometimes I'll give it an entire paragraph and then also attach a document and have it work through the problem in my paragraph, while also juxtaposing the problem against a policy or a procedure, or writing something, or helping me to write something. So it's been super productive, and that way it's really changed the way that it's really changed my efficiency here at work. It's really made me way, way, way more efficient. And super secret, I do use it at home as well. I use it to win arguments with my kids. So they haven't discovered it yet. So Dad's got a leg up on them technology wise. I see a couple of hands up. I think Modine, you had your hand up first.
Yes. Yes. Hi. I am very interested. I'm a daily user of this the language models, but I'm more interested in moving it to the level of being able to use in design applications. I'm a city engineer, so I'm currently on my own. I'm trying to do some studies on how I can use LiDAR technology to implement it together, so I can do design architecture with minimum human intervention. So that is something that I like to probe more and have discussions with somebody who can advise me on. At the same time, I'm also like with my wife. It's kind of like I have this conversation going on whether it's morally justified. She's an academic. She doesn't believe that this is right, but I think this is the way world is going to head on. So I don't think we can escape it. But at the same time, there is some amount of concern that we are going to put a significant amount of people out of business. But at the same time, that's going to create more opportunities in different sides. So just food for thought.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dean, for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. Micah, go ahead. I'll defer to you on that.
Yeah, so I'd say, let's do this too. If anyone here is doing stuff with LiDAR or that kind of thing, please message Modine, or I think you go by Dean, right? I believe we're interaction here before. So if you, feel free to message Dean directly and offer your insights. Really on the discussion of policies, here's kind of the direction that we want to go as a network. Policy is a really important question that I think each local government is going to want to have answered and think through in terms of what's best for their city and their organization. For the purposes of this network, I really want to just be hyper focused on the applications of AI, and feel free to engage offline and to use the connections here to kind of pick each other's brains. I know some folks have policies, some people don't have policies. And so if you want to share your policies in this chat or links to them, feel free to do that. But I'm going to avoid debating the nuances of policies, a lot of different perspectives here. And I think we can be inclusive enough to realize that everybody's going to have different opinions and different things on that. Mark, going back to kind of what you were sharing on AI, and Melanie, I see your hand raised here too as well. So I'm gonna get to you in one brief second here. You mentioned you use ChatGPT, you're starting to use Julius. what type of, like, how are you mentioned also using kind of a conversational based approach to doing this. What kind of prompts are you using to kind of do this, especially looking at policies and checking your policies, or and then what tools are you using for that? Is that primarily ChatGPT? Are you using other tools with that as well too? Can you kind of speak to that as well?
Yeah, so I'm really laying out the scenario for ChatGPT or the application that I'm using. So I will open up with my opening line is almost always, "You are a police chief." So I actually try to put the AI into my shoes when I'm asking it to help me solve a problem. And you'll notice I said help me because I don't depend upon it to give me all the answers. To me, ChatGPT is almost a great way to get things started. But of course, I always encourage everybody to double check the work that it's spitting out to you, and to make sure that everything you're putting on paper to present in a public forum or to your boss is factual. That it's not just something that ChatGPT might have pulled from somewhere and then gotten mixed up with something else. I really like to try to go back and do that. But I will actually place the AI in my shoes, and I will describe the challenge that I'm working on, or the problem that I'm working on, or the thing that I want to try to accomplish. I found that if I begin with the end in mind, that it works a lot better than trying to just have it 100% guide me. Now, and those of you who have been using it for a while, you're probably thinking you can get prompts from the answers that it gives you, and you're 100% correct. You can use the answers that it gives you for prompt development. But I think that beginning with the end in mind really helped me in my use of the tool to try to make it as valuable as possible. Of course, it's not going to understand all the nuances of being a police chief. It can't possibly do that. And it can't take into account political environments, because it just doesn't know the environment that I'm working in. But it can give me a really, really good starting point. And it's been very, very helpful for me in policy development, in the development of job descriptions, in the development of expectations. So I also use it for performance-based things for my people. So I will tell it who I am and what I expect, and what the position is that I'm writing expectations for. And then it will help me develop a rather robust list of expectations for my employees as we move forward in setting the culture of my police department. So I've been working on culture change within my department, and it's been super, super helpful in terms of helping to develop some of those things, or being helpful in suggesting things or directions I can go in.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. And Melanie, I see your hand raised. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, we can get your question here.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing, Mark. I was curious when you said that you're using it for budgeting purposes. If you could maybe go a little bit further with that, like how exactly are you using it for budgeting and getting information that way? Are you using like Excel sheet, or like how do you do that?
I don't really like to benchmark our city against other cities. I like to try to be innovative, but we can look at other cities that are like size or maybe a little bit bigger, and then see what their budgets are like, and then try to project ahead so that I can do a good budget proposal for my bosses. And that way they know what direction I'm looking to go in. So essentially I could just pull right off publicly available information off of websites, and either put the link into the AI or put the copy and paste the document, the two documents I want to compare, and it'll do a comparison. And so like a comparison I'll do is like, how many cops are appropriate for a city this size with this amount of budget? Okay. And what should my budget look like, or how many officers should I have? I've even tried to dump in some calls for service data and try to project ahead, i.e., my city is this big, I have this many officers, I have this budget, we have a call volume of X, Y, and Z, and then another city has a call volume of A, B, and C, and a budget of this, and this many officers. Tell me what this data says about how I should project ahead for asking for police officers in the future.
Okay, and so when you get that information back, have you found that it's like steered you in a different direction than maybe you might have gone, or are you finding that it's pretty much what you already knew?
A little bit of both.
A little both. Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
No, thanks for your question.
Thanks, Mark, for sharing. Would you be willing to share kind of a contact information for you, Mark, in the chat in case people have other questions, or if they want to reach out to you and discuss this further, especially folks who may have, maybe you're working with public safety and police departments or things like that to be able to pick their brain on things. Do you mind sharing that with the folks here?
Nope, not at all. I'm happy to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then go ahead.
Nope, that's all I pretty much have. Just, it's just a great tool. And, I kind of feel like a kid in a candy store. I try to play with it every day. It's great because I can't break it. And at the end of the day, if my conversation goes in a direction I don't want it to go, I can just start a new chat. And so that's fantastic.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Mark. I want to switch over. If anyone else has any questions for Mark, he's going to share his contact information here in the chat. Feel free to message him directly and ask those questions and gain the insights there. I want to shift over to Mr. Andrew Patton and want to give you a chance to share what you're doing there, Andrew. If you don't mind, just kind of give a brief introduction, who you are, where you're with, and let's get talking.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew Patton. I'm the Director of Human Resources here at the City of Laverne. And I started using AI a number of months ago, discovered Micah, and he's got a connection not too far from where I'm at here in Tennessee. And I'm slowly getting other departments and our administration here to use the service more and more. I'll tell you, I use a couple of different ones. ChatGPT is kind of the primary one that I'm using. I'm also using Claude and Perplexity. Those two are newer to me. I use the paid version of ChatGPT, which their latest improvements have been incredible. Haven't completely eliminated my use for plugins, but I still use them when I can. I'm using it from an HR perspective a couple of different ways, and I thought I would just share some of the wins that I've experienced. One of them is probably much like a lot of you, there's a lot of email that comes from third-party vendors, citizens, wide variety of people that aren't necessarily looking for a specific community answer. They're looking for an in to get business or generate a lead. And prior to using AI at all, I probably would ignore 99% of those emails and found that they just kept resurfacing. What I've started to do is using AI to generate the response to a lot of those incoming emails. So, I might on an average day get 3 or 4 or 5 vendor inquiries into various things that we might use here in the city. I'll grab that entire email, throw it into ChatGPT, and tell it to write a polite decline on behalf of myself. And I tell the AI like who I am and where I work, so that's helpful in its response. I'll read the response, I'll copy it, throw it onto the email, and hit send. Here's what I found. Number one is I just feel better about the fact that I'm not ignoring an incoming email. Obviously, since everything's public record, it's trackable that I'm not ignoring it. Number two, I'm giving every person a response. And number three, I have gotten a surprisingly amount of polite responses from vendors saying that they always get ignored from municipalities and they just appreciate someone writing them back. Realizing that those people are also on a journey to generate leads for their business. So that's been one use. Number two, using it to refine job descriptions. I think Mark mentioned that as well. Using it heavily for that. I just finished a revision of our employee handbook. Actually, the board will vote on it tomorrow night. And what I did this year was I took large chunks of data from the employee handbook that felt very legalese to me, that if I'm an end user, if I'm in Parks and Rec, or I'm a laborer in the Public Works Department, or I'm a firefighter, it just felt like those paragraphs, albeit technically correct, were not super easy to understand for the employee. So I used the program to help refine those, make them easier to understand, not losing the meaning, not losing any of the very important policy elements, but just restructuring it so that the end user could more easily understand the content that I wanted them to grasp on a day-to-day basis. So I'm using it for a lot of that. And then I think Micah asked a few moments ago about prompts. I don't know how many of you are active LinkedIn users, but there is a tremendous amount of resources as far as prompts go through a lot of just LinkedIn individual feeds and AI group feeds. And so I'm finding, I'll give you an example of one. I did one the other day, I'm just pulling it up, and I wanted to look at what it was like to look at an enhanced performance engagement plan with a 360-degree feedback model. And so here was my prompt that I used. You know, I told it to act like a Vanguard performance improvement 360 feedback member. And I told it specifically to, you know, that I wanted facilitated feedback through workshops and coaching methodologies. And at the very end, I found a prompt on a LinkedIn that I thought was funny when I first heard it, but it's literally phrased this way: take a deep breath and engage in this comprehensive process step by step. And I have found that when I use that phrase, that the AI will literally just take an extra moment of processing and it spits me out a response that is much more detailed than if it just generated so quickly. So maybe that's all the head game that I'm playing, but I felt like that was an important discovery that I've been starting to use. So Micah, that's just kind of a general overview. I'm engaged with it regularly, probably every day. I'm getting my city administrator to embrace it. My fire chief, I showed it to him just the other day, and he was like, oh my gosh, this is going to help us so much in writing policies that we are creating from the ground up. So it's definitely a tool that I'm using, not necessarily to replace people, but I'm viewing it as a way of saying, where could I spend my time that has a greater ROI for the employees that I represent and the citizens that I serve, instead of sitting here writing manual emails back that I can just use something to generate that in 4 seconds and move on to my next task.
Great application. Thanks for sharing that, Andrew. I can see a hand raised too. If anybody else has a question for Andrew here, please raise your hand. We'll get questions to him. And there's a comment here from Ken. If you don't mind sending us the wording on that prompt about taking a deep breath, that'd be wonderful. Also, I'd like to ask too, Andrew. So the resources that you're finding on LinkedIn, do you mind sending that to me too, or send it to the group, and we can pass those resources along? There's so many cool resources out there. It'd be, you know, great to be able to share those insights, those little tricks and tips we get from LinkedIn or the social platforms that we're on. So Melanie, I see your hand raised here. Please go ahead with your question for Andrew.
Right, thank you. Sorry, I have lots of questions. One is, you mentioned how you make things more readable, like you're just trying to make things more readable, more understandable. Are you finding sometimes when I'm trying to do that, I'm finding that it's just a little, it's not coming out exactly right? Have you kind of found a magic sauce that really kind of gives you a more professional but easy to read, plain language type of prompt that works for you?
Probably not the answer you want, Melanie, but yes and no. I don't think there's a magic sauce that I found yet. At times, the responses can be too casual and or too basic. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it's when I tell the AI to, sound like me, the director of HR, I'll get a different response. Or, word this in such a way that a laborer in the street department would understand. As crazy as it sounds and
Okay. Yep.
mind-blowing, you'll get different responses to that. But I would agree with you that yes, there are moments where I'll look at the response and I'll think, that's too cavalier. That's like never gonna fly. It's not professional enough. And so I'll just regenerate it, or I'll say, that's a great start. Can you make it sound more professional? And let it go through that one more time. I talk in my responses to the AI as if they're sitting right in front of me. I found that works for me.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great question, Melanie. Thanks for the questions. I love them. These are really good and insightful questions. Andrew, would you be willing to share your contact information or a way people can reach out to you just in case people have additional questions for you or anything they want to engage within how to use AI within human resources and all the different areas within the city of Laverne, Tennessee that you touched there?
No, I'm kidding. Of course I will.
Okay. Oh man.
I'll put it in the chat. And yeah, absolutely. Anybody can reach out to me on AI stuff or general HR stuff. I'm happy to help anybody that needs it.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for that there. And then I also wanted to turn things over to Nolan. And Nolan, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name here. So if you want to introduce yourself and educate us how to pronounce your last name, appreciate that too.
Thank you, and I wouldn't expect anybody to just pronounce it correctly the first time. My name is Nolan Pleche. I am a lobbyist with the League of Oregon Cities, so I don't represent any one city, but all 241 along with my team, and that ranges from small, medium, and large cities. And one of the things I really wanted to recognize is the different uses of AI, whether it's generative or predictive AI. Because I think that varies a lot within our community so far. And there are a lot that are still trying to understand the different uses of AI and what is, recognizing that even if you're using Control F, that is a use of AI. But a lot of folks don't really recognize these differences, and I think it's really important. We recently put on at the LOC annual conference a breakout session on the use of AI in local government. And we had one new local company called Urban Form visit that is using AI to improve the land zoning process, recognizing how tedious it is and how much information is just stuffed in City Hall in these books, and how challenging it is for developers when they are building housing. And how can we use AI to make that process more efficient, to get housing on the ground a little bit quicker? And so that is one potential use. Others are using it to consider how to write grant applications. A lot of our communities are small and do not have the kind of resources and capacity to write grants, nor the skills or technical knowledge. And this has become a way that some are able to kind of really help with that process. One of the things I'm really trying to impart on many of our members, and it's been mentioned by Andrew as well as by Mark, is that this is a tool, and there are human beings are still a very important part of this process to protect against potential biases that might come out with the use of AI when generating any kind of responses, as well as just making sure the information you're putting out there is actually factually accurate and is applicable to your city. And so we really encourage folks to think of this as a tool, make sure they're double checking all of their work as they are using AI. And I will put here in the chat a link to the video, because we did record that session. So if anybody's interested, they can actually watch that. It does kind of a deep dive from a couple different professors. One that is working with one of our local cities on a potential model AI policy and some of the things that they are looking at, as well as links to other cities and state policies that are being developed. As well as the person from Urban Forum who does that presentation. on how to use AI in the land zoning process. And I also have a link to the PDF for all the PowerPoints, because one of them does share a link to a list of multiple AI applications that you all can kind of take a gander at and see if any of them are applicable to your city. But one of the things, I think folks have to be cautious in how they use it, but I think that this is an amazing tool for a lot of our members, especially those with less capacity. It has an immense advantage to provide more efficiency in the work. And one thing I try to tell folks is to work smarter and not harder. And if you can reduce the amount of time you are spending writing emails, even newsletters, or grants, etc., definitely consider using it, but definitely always check your work as you are going through that entire process, because you do not want to be on the front page of, saying something potentially racist or excluding certain groups, or by putting out information that is not factual. But like I said, there are a lot of different applications that cities are using, from small to large cities. And really just wanted to lift that up for this group.
Thanks for sharing that, Nolan. I'm curious too, if you don't mind, what's been the any kind of wins, especially on the two examples you gave with zoning processes, and then even within grant writing, from where you sit in the League of Oregon Cities, have you seen any communities start to adopt this and see some real wins, whether it be on maybe applying for some grants, or maybe reviewing their zoning process? Anything you can speak to on that end at all?
Not so much yet. It's relatively new. He is the person who came to our event, was really trying to highlight this to our members. Really focused on the Portland area in Oregon right now, but he is trying to expand to provide that opportunity for other cities as well. But the examples he kind of brought up, he is actually a former architect and would talk about going down to City Hall, trying to dig through books hours on ends, trying to understand the different permitting for each corner or section of the blocks that he is working on. And kind of demonstrating the differences between shuffling through, books and books, trying to understand that process versus just pulling up a single address on your cell phone and getting all the information you need right at the tips of your fingers. So that hasn't been widely adopted just yet. Again, I'm still trying to help our members really understand the potential uses for AI. I think there's a lot of concern and just misunderstanding from our members right now. And then for the grant writing, that came from the example that was used from that came from one of the professors in our presentation. He's a professor from the University of Oregon. He was working on a grant. My apologies, my 3-year-old is home with me today. 1 moment, sweetie. Yeah, in 1 moment, sweetie. And he was able to basically have the ChatGPT write a grant application for him. And then once the application came out, he said, what are the chances of this application actually being accepted? And I think it spit out like, well, 70%. It's like, well, can we get this to 90%? And so it did some reworking. It's like, here's a grant application that's 90%. It's like, okay, can we get this up to 95? And, eventually tried to get it to 100%. From his storytelling, he was saying that once they continue to keep refining it using AI and asking it different questions, vetting the language, once they turned it in, that grant was actually accepted and awarded to them after the fact. So, again, I think that's where constantly checking the work, just because you get one response doesn't mean it can't be refined. I actually wrote used a previous description I wrote using AI to refine it to become a more attractive breakout session from our members. And so, again, just constantly refining what you're putting in there, seeing different ideas that are coming out from AI. Sometimes you just have to prompt it and ask it different questions, especially if you're trying to avoid potential biases as well. So, it's just constantly checking that work, looking over what it's spitting out and making sure that what you're training is actually factual. But it sounds like they're, especially for a lot of our small cities, there's a lot of money out there for them at the state and federal level, and they don't even know it exists, nor how to get it, nor how to write these grants. And this is a potential game changer for a lot of those communities.
Thanks for sharing that. I completely agree too on just being able to quickly write these grants, and those things take a lot of time, even on the management side of things too. On those grants, sometimes those grants can actually be more costly, the management side of it, than it actually is in the money it's generating too. But I think it's a great application for AI to be able to offset those operational costs, and really, really great for the communities, smaller size communities, rural communities across the nation. So thanks for sharing that. Nolan, if you don't mind, if you haven't done this already in the chat here, can you send out your contact information just in case people have other questions about that, they want to engage with you, maybe insights on the land zoning process or on the grant application stuff or anything else within the League of Oregon Cities? And thanks for sharing. And I see, Andrew, you have your hand raised, so go ahead, sir.
Just going to ask Nolan or anybody else, we are going to be needing to backfill a grant writer position that we've had as a full-time position. We have it posted right now as a combo role of finance analyst and grant writer. And the thought was to move the grant writing process to finance. It's currently under our city recorder department. But I'm finding two things. One, there's not a whole lot of candidates that are looking for that role. Number two, there's not a whole lot that are super qualified. And when you said that you're using it for grant writing, I just wonder, and to contradict what I said a few moments ago, not to replace people, is this a good opportunity to think way outside the box? And what do you think the success would be of not necessarily having a full-time employee who did grant writing, but really use AI as the primary source, and then someone to simply refine that? Do you think that, does the group think that there would be success in that kind of a structure?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my lens, I don't think it has to necessarily replace people. I don't think you can really replace someone who has that kind of a skill set in writing grants. But even for them, I think it could be a helpful tool to kind of really get them over that finish line. But sometimes, like your position, you're not finding applicants. It's not always easy to find someone that is a skilled grant writer. One of the things that we're trying to talk to folks about, and we're partnering with our schools about, like, how important it is to have a knowledge of how to use AI. What are the appropriate uses? How can you make sure you're using it ethically? And if you can find an applicant who, understands how to use AI and understands the basics, even around grant writing, that's a great potential applicant, even if it's not for someone in that direct position, or if you have someone on staff who can kind of help out in that space. But I think it can replace folks, and it doesn't have to at the same time. And for some of our communities, they aren't going to find the staffers.
Nothing will beat a 3-year-old who wants to take a picture with their dad. So go for it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Taking pictures.
You're teaching them young about you're teaching them young about AI, right, Nolan? We're getting started early here. So, Andrew, I think it's a really interesting point too about whether or not this should replace a grant writer, and maybe it's too early in the game for that R word, right? But I think what it could easily do, and folks, feel free to jump in here and offer your perspectives. But I think what it could do is it could definitely augment and add capacity to that position, right? And so I think you're kind of already going down that line with integrating this with the financial analyst part of things, and obviously having that human in the loop perspective is going to be necessary for grant applications. They're going to know, some of these grants can get kind of, I hate to say it, they can get kind of political, right? They have different things that they ask of cities, and some cities may be willing, some other cities may be kind of more hesitant to do that. And so having that can really help out. But I think it could easily add capacity to that position to know that, okay, what normally would have taken, X number of hours to develop this grant is now cut in half, which means we have more bandwidth to do maybe the bigger picture of what is our grant management strategy? What is our overall perspective on how we want to manage grants in the city of Laverne or whatever community we're in, and kind of have a bigger picture as opposed to just, hey, there's seed money and go write a grant to go get it, right? Maybe a little more thoughtful process too that can be achieved now that we have the capacity to do that. But I'll open it up if anybody else has any other insights they want to add on this at all. Feel free to raise your hand here. I'm seeing a question here in the chat. Let me see 1 second here. Looks like Janet here says, finance analyst and grant writer are grant management and grant sourcing may not be compensating the level you have advertised to maybe too low, too broad a skill set, maybe narrow to business relationship grant writer as the pairing. Really good insight there, Janet. Thanks for sharing that. Phenomenal insight there. Anyone else want to add anything? Please feel free to do that. I'll have a couple seconds here to allow people to chat here if anyone else has anything else. And Melanie, I see your hand raised. Please unmute yourself and ask your great question.
All right, great. I'm just wondering, with OpenAI kind of having GPT, OpenAI chat, the ChatGPT closed down for Plus users. Are you encouraging people? I'm not really excited about encouraging people to use 3.5 in the free version, but I haven't looked at it in a little bit. I'm just wondering what everyone's thoughts were on kind of saying, yeah, you can't get Plus right now, but you can go ahead and use ChatGPT free, and it just seems like it's not as good.
Yeah, the drop down from 4 down to 3.5 to me is quite significant. Yeah, it's an unfortunate too that they're kind of maybe going through some growing pains internally as a company. I think the good thing right now for us, the state where that AI is in, is there are a lot of different tools that are out there. Mark mentioned Julius as a phenomenal tool that does a lot of budget analysis and data analysis. You have Claude, you have Bard, so you have some other tools that are out there. Obviously you do have 3.5 as well for ChatGPT. But I just wonder with the landscape of where things are at right now with AI and all the different tools that are out there, that maybe 3.5 isn't even worth using at times right now, just how powerful Claude is and how powerful these other things are. Anybody else want to jump in and add their perspective or their insights?
I would just say I think it provides a good opportunity to practice using AI. It doesn't mean you have to use it just yet, but for those who are just not ready to quite take that leap and just want to kind of practice and understand a little bit about what the software is, I think it's a good opportunity to at least get that kind of practice and to build your understanding about how using AI. But I agree. I mean, and it's only going to get better when you get the ChatGPT 5 that comes out. It's going to be significantly better than 4. We'll be saying the same thing. But it's a good opportunity to practice, I'd say.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nolan, and thanks, Melanie, for your question there. Anything else, Melanie, you want to add at all?
I just wanted to add one more question. I just wondered if anyone had explored OpenAI Enterprise yet at any level.
I have not. Has anyone else out there explored anything at all? Doesn't look like it. If anybody else is thinking of exploring it or have done so, please share with the group. I'd love to hear your insights and your perspectives as you go through that process. So it looks like we're nearing the end of our time here. I want to thank folks for sharing, for adding their perspectives. Thank you so much for attending and for joining us today. Again, this meeting is recorded and live streamed on YouTube, and you can also go back and rewatch that at a later time too, if you so desire. As a reminder, I'll send out a link to this recording, as well as a quick summary of the meeting here with links to be able to share your insights as well too. If you want a time like Mark had this at this meeting, be able to share what you're doing with AI and local government, we'd love to have you to share that and give you a platform to share what you're doing. So with that being said, thank you again so much for attending. I appreciate your time and joining us of this over my lunch hour. I'm not sure what time of day you're joining me from here, but thank you for spending some time with us today and sharing your insights. Until next time, be well, and I'll see you later.
Thanks very much.